wanted to come out this morning and give a little more information on the officer-involved shooting, an officer being shot yesterday. No, it was a hectic scene. There was a lot of information that went out. So I was watching the news this morning. I think it was worth coming out, setting forth kind of the timeline and some information that we have on this, try to clarify some stuff out there, because really it's all across the board, and want to make sure you guys have clear and complete, accurate information. Detectives worked on this case last night into the early morning hours. I know I didn't get out of here till close to midnight, so that's why we weren't getting information out to you. But yesterday, around 11:21-ish, a little before that, Officer Tony Lopez Jr. Ran a plate on his MDT. So that's the first indication we have on our timeline, and that was about 11:19 that he started to run a clearance on his MDT on a license plate. We have him coming up on the air about 11:21-ish, calling out a traffic stop at Clyde and Federal. Almost immediately or shortly after that, he is heard on the air requesting an ambulance code 10, that he has been shot, and for cover officers to come in there. So it's almost simultaneously, the simulcast went out. I want to thank the initial responding officers and paramedics to the scene. If it wasn't for their life-saving efforts and the use of a combat tourniquet, Officer Lopez may not be with us today. So, but thanks to those guys, he's there. Officer Lopez was also wearing a bulletproof vest, which did stop some of the rounds that hit him. He was struck a couple or multiple times. I don't want to go into any description of those wounds at this time, because I think there's been some medical people that have gone through that. Suspect then fled the scene in the vehicle and abandoned it about a couple blocks away. We have him then going on from there westbound on 38th Avenue to the U.S. Bank, where he carjacks a vehicle from the teller line. He crawls in the vehicle with the car, pushes her out of the car, takes that car, thank goodness, to alert officers on the perimeter of the scene that observed this vehicle leaving the scene on at a high rate of speed. A pursuit was authorized at that time. The vehicle was then chased to the location of 20th and Chestnut, where one of our pit maneuvers was used on the vehicle to take it into custody. At that time, the suspect came out of the car, was taken into custody without further incident, and he was discovered that he had a gunshot wound to his leg. Don't want to go into lower leg. He was transported to the hospital at that time. All the officers did a real good job of containing the scene, talking to witnesses at the scene. We did have, I don't want to go into a lot of details about witnesses, but we had some witnesses that believe there was possibly two shooters at the scene. That information might have been aired. I know that there was some information going out across. We talked to, a lot of witnesses yesterday, did a lot of videotape, and we believe, based on witness statements and evidence at the scene, that we only had one shooter at the scene that moved around some vehicles and was firing at the officer. He ran back to his car, got in his car, he fled the scene. One of the witnesses that we talked to was fleeing the scene at the same time. So it could be very easily to discuss or believe, because of the two vehicles speeding away from the scene at the same time, that there was possibly two suspects there. We believe we have the male suspect that was the shooter in custody. We are continuing to look for a female that was in the vehicle of the stop. One of the things Officer Lopez was able to do to the initial responders was give a description of a white male with some tattoos. He gave a description of a heavy-set female that was involved in the car. I believe initial things that went across the air, if you have that she was wearing an orange Bronco jacket or an orange shirt. She has fled the scene. We may have her identified at this time, but I don't have enough that I'm going to come forward. If we get enough that we feel comfortable that she is a suspect in this case, we will be coming to you guys asking for your help. We ran on that last night for quite a bit of time. So we do believe that there is a heavy-set Hispanic or white female that fled the scene. We've been following up tips on that and possibly have her ID, but those happened well after our witnesses had gone, so we haven't been able to show a photo array to them to verify that this is exactly who we have, but we have information from the initial responding officer and additional witnesses that we talked to. So we are continuing to look for this female that's out there. If I get enough information and we develop, information that she's involved in the crime and we get a warrant out, we will be getting that information to you. Otherwise, we normally don't release witness names, have to do a lot of clearance on that. I would also ask that the suspect that we have in custody is still at the hospital. We do not have a current and accurate mugshot of this individual, so we were not able to do photo arrays with our witnesses. My number one priority is to get that mugshot into the system. He has not even been booked through the jail, so we have not even been able to verify what his name is based on fingerprints and everything else. That's why we haven't came out with his name. As soon as that happens and we get those photo arrays completed, we will be releasing that mugshot. But I ask you guys, if you come across his name or his mugshot in any way, shape, or form, please hold back on showing that, because we have several witnesses that's going to be vital to our case in the prosecution of this individual that's in custody for the attempted, murder of one of our police officers. So I just make that plea to you. I will tell you that I will have investigators moving forward as fast as I can to get that photo array and that name released to you. But for the jeopardy of the investigation, we just are asking at this point that you don't do that. I guess I can open it up for questions as we go. The carjacking happened after the shooting. So I know there was some my initial response to the scene, what I was told was that he was possibly making a stop related to some bank robbery investigation or bank call. But it's clear after looking at the CAD calls, the timeline on that, and we do have some video from the bank, that happened after the fact. Plus we followed physical evidence from where he dumped the car up to that location. So the carjacking occurred after the initial shooting. We do not know what the original reason that Officer Lopez was making the stop on this car. We have not been able to talk to him. He was transported to the hospital where he's still in critical condition. And so we don't know at this point what that stop was for. We just know he made the stop, he called it out, and we'll kind of go from there.
What kind of gun was the suspect using? Do you have any sense of what was going on with this suspect that he would just, because it appears that he just opened fire, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have that he almost immediately after the stop came out of his car, based on what witnesses are saying, firing at the officer. I would say based on the fact that the stop's called out, and within, almost immediately the officer's already calling out that he was shot, that, this was an immediate action that took off. That's where we also have the officer that called out that there was the Hispanic or white female that fled. We have some witnesses that talk about her fleeing to the south. I don't want to go into the details of the gun, but we believe the gun that he was using during this shooting was a handgun. And like I said, he fired multiple times. There is also information, if you go back and listen, I don't go into evidence, but we did recover additional weapons out of the vehicle that he abandoned and additional ammunition. I don't want to go into the specifics of that evidence because I don't want to jeopardize my case.